husband came in. Hey, Bob. My husband's here. That's Bob over there. Anyway, well, welcome to Butler County Government Services Center. My name is Nancy Nix. I am the county auditor. I've been county auditor for 2 years. Before that, I spent 15 years as county treasurer. So property taxes have been a big part of my life, as they are yours now. And I welcome you to listen to our office, Butler County Auditor's Office. I have Mike Gilday here. He's going to give an update on the real estate market that just keeps going up, up, up. I'm going to say a few words and have some slides, and then we will have our lawmakers speak. And then we have a podium over here for you to ask questions of me, my office, or our lawmakers. I want to also introduce all the county office holders that are here this evening. We have Cindy Carpenter, our county commissioner, county treasurer Michael McNamara, county commissioner Don Dixon, and county administrator Judy Boyko, and county recorder Dan Crank, and County Commissioner T.C. Rogers. I know we have also a lot of township and city elected officials in the audience. I know if I tried to introduce you all, I would miss it. So, Michael, I see you. Anyway, there are a lot of officials from Westchester and Hamilton, and I'm so glad that you turned out because I know you hear a lot of questions about property taxes in your areas. I already said we have 3 lawmakers here, Rodney Creech and Diane Mullins and Jennifer Gross, and you will be hearing from them. Unfortunately, George Lang, our state senator, is dealing with some serious health issues, so he will not be here tonight, but he has sent a statement with Thomas Hall, who is a firefighter, and he gets off work at 6 and should be here at 6:30 to 6:45. So Thomas and Jennifer, Diane, and Rodney, our state representatives, will all be speaking, and then you can line up at the podium for questions. I also want to introduce my staff who's here. Well, I think Julie Levsky and Chastity McAnulty are out there. David Brown is in the back. Lori Sullivan is our chief deputy at the auditor's office, and you'll hear from Mike Gilday here shortly. And then 2 other individuals that are here is Carl Keith is the auditor of Montgomery County, and he is the reason we're having this town hall. His idea was months ago, we have these recommendations, and I have handouts here in case you took one. The County Auditor Association, led by Tom Pappas, who's also in the audience, has 4 recommendations, and we are promoting those recommendations for property tax reform. We're trying to let the public know what the auditors feel needs and should be done, and we're trying to let our lawmakers know. So Carl Keith said we need to have these town halls and let the public know, let the press know, and put some pressure on our lawmakers to give us the property tax relief that we have long needed. I'm also going to say that Matt Nolan, will you and Carl stand up real quick? Okay, those are my fellow county auditors, and they have so much knowledge. I'll never know what they know. But Matt Nolan is our president of the County Auditor Association, and his whole goal this year is property tax reform and finding a remedy for these high property taxes that are becoming so unaffordable for so many of you and us. So I will start here. I won't go long. We know we all want to hear from our lawmakers because there's not one thing that we can do here locally. These are state laws that are sort of imposed on us, but you have to remember that property taxes stay local. It's your city, it's your school district. Most of it's, well, most 60 to 70% goes to your school district, parks, social service agencies, etc. So because it's local dollars, our lawmakers are just not tied into everything going on with property taxes. Well, they've become that way. As you know, the former auditor had sued the state tax commissioner about these inflated residential real estate values. Then we had the commissioners, led by Don Dixon, had these summits with our lawmakers 2 years ago, and the Journal News was covering it incredibly well. So it got people very upset, very, I guess, anxious about the property tax bills that were going to be sent by the treasurer in 2024. And then we had lost that lawsuit, which meant we had retroactive taxes put on our bills in 2023. So there's been a whole lot of things going on in Butler County before the rest of the state even knew there was a problem. So I will commend our state lawmakers for everything they've been trying to do. It just hasn't worked yet. Now, I will say Senator George Lang and Representative Thomas Hall, they did get legislation passed in 2023, but their leadership did not take it all the way. So nothing happened in 2023. They had a property tax committee in 2024, and then did a lot of meetings, but again, nothing happened. So tonight is our chance for Rodney, Diane, and Jennifer. Poor Diane, she's new, to tell us what's going on, and then Thomas Hall will be here shortly. Okay, so who has the clicker? Lori. Okay, Lori does everything. Okay, yeah. Okay, next. Okay, this is just what I said, and I only have a few slides. But as you know, the Butler County leaders have been in the fight for many years with our summits, our town halls, and then with the legislation that our lawmakers were able to pass 2 years ago. Okay, next. Okay, and then this is what I was talking about. 2024, they had the property tax committee. They had many, many meetings. Alas, no property tax relief. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Right now, our office is conducting a reappraisal. So we will have new values as of January 1st, 2026. When everybody was up in arms last time, that was for the values as of January 1st, 2023. And then 3 years later, we have a reval, which means we're looking at every single property in the county. And Mike, you can talk about that in just a minute. Mike is a 30-year appraiser. He's our senior commercial appraiser in the auditor's office. And he can talk about that reval process that we're undergoing right now. We have our staff, like it's all hands on deck. Everybody's coming and looking at every single property. It used to be we had to go look at the property in a car. Now we can do it through technology, which does save a lot of time and taxpayer dollars, but it's still very monotonous, tedious work. So anyway, we have a new reval we're working on right now. Real estate prices keep going up, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike.
Hi, Bob. As Nancy said, I am the senior ranking appraiser on her real estate appraisal team. Been in the business for 33 years, and 17 years of that was in private practice. I am the one responsible for raising land values, industrial values, apartment values, farm values. So if anyone's to blame or mad at anybody, it's me, because we're interpreting the market and we're seeing market conditions significantly increasing. Here's a chart from that dates back to 2014 through 2024. This was for single family property. We've had an increase in the value of, or sale prices of $150,000 to $310,000 in Butler County. It's a 107% increase in our values and our sale prices. I'm sorry, our values have not increased as much, and you can see how they step up. They step up in 2020, 2023, and those were the points where we did a reappraisal of the properties in the county, and they'll stay flat for about 3 years till we get to our next reappraisal, which is in 2026, payable in 27. And I anticipate another increase in value. I don't anticipate 37%, maybe somewhere in the lines of 20 to 25% increase in values, but it's still going up unless something drastic happens to our economy. I don't see much of a change in the market. But so I've been to a few seminars. I was at one recently that Auditor Keith put on at the County Auditors Association. He showed a similar slide, but I wanted to kind of give you the why. Why are our values at all-time highs? It first stemmed out of the Great Recession. In the Great Recession, home building throughout the country, throughout the state, and throughout our local economy kind of stalled. So they weren't building homes at the pace they were prior to the Great Recession. Then we have a frozen supply. From about 2011 to 2022, we had interest rates at about 3%. There's roughly, they say, about 42 million single family homes that have an interest rate below 6%. It's a frozen supply. It's a lock in effect. They're not going anywhere. My mortgage payment right now is $800 a month. My mortgage rate is 2.75. I'm not going anywhere. So we got a frozen, we got a lock in effect. The millennials are the largest adult population block in the United States, and they're in a buying mode. They're tired of spending $2,500 a month in rent. They want to buy Bob and Betty Buckeye's home. Population shift. We're seeing a lot of this from the coastal areas and even from like sanctuary cities. When I field phone calls in the office, I would say 10% of the calls we receive are from area codes outside the 513 or the 937. There are people from California moving to our area. So there's incredible demand for our real estate locally. We got a strong economy. Unemployment's at, I think, 4% the last time I checked. As long as the economy remains strong, we're going to see increasing property values and migration. I think J.D. Vance brought this up when he was when he was running as vice president. There's 21 million immigrants into this country, whether they're legal or illegal. It's causing a demand for housing. According to Zillow says we have a 4.5 million shortage of homes in the United States, and I think there's a low income housing institute that reported that figure might be 7.3 million. So, so what I'm getting at is that we have to interpret the market as appraisers. We have to value the property and what the market is doing. And I think everybody in this room knows that the values are up, sale prices are up, and I can tell you why. That's our Board of Revision complaint filings from 2014 to 2024. It is down. Right now, I just talked to our clerk. We're up to about 60 filings now. We're down about 95% from 2014 on our Board of Revision complaints. So the people know, the people, you, me, everyone in this room knows that our values are market driven. We're benefiting from higher values. You can do cash out refinances. You can do home equity lines of credit. We're all benefiting from these higher values. Does anybody have any questions? Where are you seeing a recession? One more? No, the Great Recession. The Great Recession started in 2011. We're not in a recession now. Yeah, yeah, it dates back to 2011. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next, Lauren. Okay, so we have a handout. Hopefully you got that. Is something that the County Auditors Association put together. We have a property tax committee at the Auditor Association, and we have been surveying, and we're on the front lines. We're working with the taxpayers. We're doing the appraising, we're doing the calculations, the assessments, and then handing it off to the treasurer for billing. So because of our exposure and knowledge to the property tax calculations, we put together 4 recommendations. Now, I'm going to mainly focus on 2 of them, but I will go through each one. But we have a handout, and we're wanting our lawmakers to see these recommendations, and we want the public to understand what we're saying when we have these recommendations. So, okay, Lori, the first one is homestead. Okay, many of you are probably on the homestead program. And what the Auditors Association is recommending is to increase the income level. Like if you can only get homestead if you are 40,000 and under on your salaries or your income, I should say. We are saying raise the income threshold so that more people can get the benefit. Also, the amount of the exemption. Right now, the first 28,000 of your home value is exempted so that you are not paying property tax on that amount. We're saying raise that exemption. That's what a lot of states have done across the country to give a better credit to homeowners. The caveat of that is the state is the one funding those credits. So when they provide money for our property tax bills, it takes away from their state budget. So the Auditors Association sees that as low hanging fruit. You know, yeah, we have a property tax problem. Let's raise the income threshold. Let's give a better exemption amount. But the state is saying that's not in our budget or it would cost us way too much money. And that's something that our lawmakers can address when they speak. So that's the first recommendation. Okay, then there are other tax credits, and we're saying let's get rid of the non-business credit, which is a 10% rollback, and that's give it to the owner occupancy credit. Give more to the owner occupancy so that you're not giving a benefit to out-of-state residential real estate companies. Now, I think this one, I'm not sure it's going anywhere because I believe it would cost the state a lot of money. I'm not sure of the amounts that have been computed on that, but that one is not one that I'm particularly focused on. The third one. Okay, this is where I think there's a lot of substance, and I believe our association would agree, and that is capping the windfall that happens as a result of the 20 mil floor. Now, I know it gets very confusing, but think of it this way. As values go up, the rates go down, the tax rates, so that those levies that our voters passed, they still collect the same amount. But back in the 1970s, the state lawmakers said, we will put a floor on that. The rates cannot go below 20 mils so that a school district is guaranteed those 20 mils. But when you have such extreme inflation in the residential real estate market and you have a school at the 20 mil floor, their taxes are going to go up as in the same proportion as their values. So places like Middletown, Hamilton, Edgewood, Miami, or New Miami, Madison, Talawanda, they all experienced increased taxes because of the 20 mil floor rule. The two school districts that did not were Lakota and Fairfield. They are not at the 20 mil floor, so their rates went down as their values went up. So let's see. Lori, can you go to the, okay, here's an example. Fairfield, their values went up 40%, 41%, but their taxes went up 9%, which is still a lot. But it does not compare to what happened in Middletown, which had values go up 42% and taxes up 34%. So it's very exacerbated. Now, Lakota and Fairfield are our biggest school districts in Butler County. So that's half of our population. But it's disparate treatment for the other half of the population whose school districts were at the 20 mil floor. And so this proposal that we're saying is cap the amount that that the windfall can increase by the amount of inflation. Like where it went up 34%, cap it at the inflation rate. The one in Middletown, 20 mil floor, that we would cap it at the inflation rate, which might be 6 or 8%. It would just put a cap on how much windfall a school district can get as a result of the 20 mil floor. Okay, Laura? Okay, so yeah, this is an explanation. Eliminate the hard stop on the rate reductions to limit the future growth on certain school levies. And this would still result in growth for the school district, just not the windfall. Okay, well, now we are to the legislative part of our presentation. What's the matter? Oh, Thomas will be last because he's got Georgia, so we'll just start with Jennifer Gross. Jennifer represents Westchester and Fairfield, the southern part of the county. So I'm glad you're here, Representative Gross, and you can talk.
Thank you. I think I get 3 hours. Is that right? All right. Anyway, I think we can. So I just want to talk to you guys. Thank you for coming. And I know I sent this in my newsletter. And so for those of you that are in Westchester, Fairfield, Ross, and Morgan, I'm your state representative. I want you to know that my view about property taxes is that they are a significant impediment to personal wealth building and homeownership. They disproportionately affect the middle class and working class families as well as retirees on fixed incomes. I believe that individuals should keep more of their earnings and assets. And after listening and hearing you, a reduction or elimination is where we have to go. But eliminating them altogether when our property tax stays local, and as our auditor Nick said, 60 to 70% goes to our schools, you can see that that's a massive issue. We could rip off the Band-Aid, but where are we going to come up with that kind of money for our schools? And I repeat what Nancy Nix said. Our property tax stay local. I did a survey. It's not a scientific survey, but I did one on X last week. I asked, where do our property tax go? They stay local, they go to the state, or they're both. 61% of the people that answered the survey said they believe our taxes go to the state and local. They all stay here. So when you vote on levies, you are raising your own property tax. It may be a good thing. It may be elderly mental health. It may be libraries. It may be schools. But every time you vote on a levy, you are raising your property tax. So then when people come, they go, you need to lower our property tax. It's like, well, we're also a local control state. So we could be like Indiana. Indiana takes the whole pile of it and then divvies it out. You might not like that either, because we might get a certain amount today, but then when we divide it equally, although I would say the fair school funding plan isn't fair, you might not like that. If we rip off the local property tax, we rip off the Band-Aid and we say we're not going to do that, and we have to do a sales tax of 9.4%, that's how we would have to pay for some of our other spending. Now, I'm a conservative, so sometimes I believe we don't have an income problem. We have a spending problem. Hello, Representative Hall. So replacement and alternatives, local control, we talked about that. Short of elimination, policies might include caps on annual increases. Representative Beth Lear has a constitutional amendment that we may be able to pass that would go on the ballot. So you could say in any given year, never would our property tax go up more than 3%. That would be kind of neat. In Colorado, I'm going to put my phone down. Colorado has something like that. We have almost probably 18 to 20 property tax bills that have been presented in the House today. And some of them, we have a 20 mil floor one. Senator Lang has the 20 mil floor one. But we also have SB 81 by Senator Patton. That one freezes the amount of property taxes owed on a home if the owner is 65 and over and has a total income of $70,000 or less per year. That's kind of a nice one. We also have HB 40 by Reps Richardson and Davila. It enhances the property tax exemption for homestead of the totally disabled veteran, increasing the amount of exemption for such homestead from $56,000 of its value to $100,000 of its value for disabled veterans whose income is below $125,000. We have HB 22. It creates the enhanced homestead exemption. So we are already working on these, like the commissioners, the Auditors Association. Just gave you a different job there. The Auditors Association. It creates enhanced, so HB 22 enhances the homestead exemption for surviving spouses of uniformed service members killed in the line of duty to all taxes imposed on the homestead. So it is the that one is, if it continues the exemption until the surviving spouse dies, remarries, or lives with someone else. So that one's good. I'm just kind of giving you an example of some of the legislation that we already are moving on. SB 66 by O'Brien and Lang, that one requires the emergency substitute tax levies. Are you going to talk about that, Representative Hall? Are you going to talk about SB 66? So that's the 20 mil floor one by Senator Lang. We passed, and I co-sponsored the bill by Thomas Hall and Representative Matthews. That was HB 28. And that was the one that said that political subdivisions can't levy replacement property tax levies Raise your hand if you think a replacement levy means you're just voting to continue what you already pay for. Oh, come on. Some people believe that's true. You have to. It actually sometimes can double the amount per mill that's on your, and a lot of people don't know that when they vote. So transparency always is best. I think the hardest thing is that all of these things are local, right? All property tax is local. We have an issue. We're the ones who change the law, but you're the ones who spend it locally. So we're partners in this. We make the law, but all the money that you're paying and that is being recouped in your property tax increases is staying local. So you have some hard decisions to make. Are you going to cut your spending? Because remember that when we cut spending, when some people aren't paying taxes, others are going to go up in some cases. When you cut taxes, your schools are going to get less money. So it isn't all about, like, I'm chair of Medicaid. Medicaid in Ohio is about ready to be 50.3% of our budget. Our budget's going to be $108 billion the first year, $110 billion the next year of the next budget if we pass the one that the governor just put out, which we're not because our new budget is coming out today. But even if we spend that same amount, money keeps going up. And even if we go by inflation, raise your hand if you're getting an inflationary raise every year. The average Ohioan is not making 3.5% raise increase every year. If you work for the government, you are. And my mom retired from the VA, my dad from the FAA. So, but the average person, my husband makes 1 or 2%. So if we keep increasing our spending by inflation, your dollar is still going less far if you aren't getting that. So I guess what I want you to hear is that we have a lot. We have about 18 to 20 bills. Any variety of everything I just shared with you is out there. I do a town hall every month. And my next one will be on the Ohio. Hold on. I'm going to do it probably on property tax this month. It'll be the second Sunday at 7 p.m. virtually. Because I had some murder threats. I've had 3 murder threats in the last 6 months. So I won't be doing them live anymore. Ohio political news on Rumble and then also on X. And that's the second Sunday at 7 p.m. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll see when those are. So we're going to take questions at the end. I'm sorry if I took too much time. Who wants to go next? Thank you very much, everybody.
I'm the newbie, and I'll just have to tell you about it. This is my hometown, and this is not a political statement, but it really is. I love my hometown. I love the people here, and I'm glad that I am in this sphere because I'm getting to know some awesome, awesome people. And just joined the Farm Bureau a couple weeks ago. I love stuff like that. So what I want to say, Jennifer just about took everything I was going to say. That's the thing about going second or third. But I have co-sponsored with Thomas Hall's bill, and I think that was Adam Matthews, the one to freeze the amounts and I think one of them was if you make, what was it? If you can get frozen at 65 and don't make as much as, what was the amount on that? Yeah, come here and tell that real quick because that's important. That's what they're here for.
You want to do it together?
Okay.
Let's do it together. Well, good evening, everybody. Sorry I was late. I promise I wasn't late on purpose.
We do it together. You take over.
I see a lot of friendly faces in the crowd tonight. I want to thank you for spending your Monday night with us when you could be doing so many other things. Tom Pappas came all the way down from Columbus to spend time with us tonight. And property taxes, we've been in this room before. And I don't want to take your time. But I do want to say that when we were here before and we were here now, we're at 2 different phases of the Ohio House. When we were here before in 2023, when Commissioner Dixon and the commissioners asked us to meet to talk about this issue, a lot of us didn't expect what was coming to Butler County. We held a roundtable in this room. We held a citizens comment in council chambers, and we did not know what was coming At that point, Ben McCall's here. Good to see you. And at the same time, we were trying to work proactively to get something done in that 2-month time span that we had for the budget. Ultimately, it did not get done. We had some disagreements in Columbus on what the best policy choice was for taxpayers, while we were listening to all of our taxpayers down here telling us how important this issue is and telling us why these changes were important. But at the same time, we weren't heard from at that moment in time, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Now, the whole state has endured what we've had to endure. And when we were complaining in 2023, we were only one of 13 counties, the entire state of Ohio. And we told them, this is coming. This is going to affect you. And they didn't believe us. I think going through what we had to go through in Butler County should never happen again. So one of the reasons we say that, and we mean that, is we go through a lot of these bills. And my biggest belief is we need to change the system of property taxes. Now, that's not going to decrease your property taxes tomorrow or next Monday or next Friday. But if we change the system, we will be able to change your property taxes long term. House Bill 28, as was talked about a little bit before. House Bill 28 was the first property tax bill that was passed by the Ohio House that myself, Representative Adam Matthews, sponsored. It gets rid of replacement levies. Gets rid of an option for voters to go and vote on increases on the property taxes that you would almost vote for anyway because, you're like, it's a renewal. It's not a renewal. Changes your taxes. Increases your taxes in a lot of regards. We're having testimony on Wednesday on House Bill 103 for the homestead exemption. Who in here is on the homestead exemption or who in here knows about the homestead exemption? By a show of hands. The homestead exemption is a very important part to Ohio. We have failed as leaders in Ohio with addressing the homestead exemption. So much so that there hasn't been changes to the homestead exemption besides inflationary change of about 4%, Tom Pappas? 4% since 2007. Think about our lives in 2007. Think about our lives in 2025 and how different things are. Do you want to keep going before I?
Just let me say this
Yeah.
and you can take it.
Sorry.
What I want to say is, when I went to Columbus, you're a new person and you're learning, and it's amazing what you learn, even the physical aspect of going around the Capitol and getting into Rife Center and all those things. But what I can tell you is this. About a month ago, we were in caucus. We were in caucus on Tuesdays at 2 p.m., and it may go an hour, it may go hours. You never know. And everywhere I go, and in caucus, everybody I speak to, it is property tax. That is the number one issue of constituents, and it's a big issue with me. I'm a human being, and I pay it too, and my payment went up a lot, and so we are working hard. I have a great appreciation for the reps that I'm involved with, because a month ago there was 20 something recommendations to get the property tax in order. And I was sitting there amazed at that. And I want to tell you, we're working hard. I've never been with a group of people that are working any harder on any issue than property tax. And I co-sponsored Thomas's bill, Representative's bill. But I said to my legislative aide, that's good, but I don't think there should be any age level. I think 65, it should be over. I don't think you should have to pay anything after you've paid your whole life long for where you live and what you do. And I'm so glad, and I'm a big component of, I'm glad there's not going to be any tax on Social Security or anything like that. You deserve what you've worked your life for. And I could just tell you, we are working hard and answers are coming. But I'll share this with you. When I went up there, I thought I was going to grab that bill with property taxes because I didn't know how it worked and start slashing it overnight in 24 hours. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. But we're going to work on it and we're going to get it done, and you will see relief. Maybe not 2025, but I really believe 2026, something will begin to happen to help us who are homeowners and property owners. So I just want to share that with you, and I'll give this back to him so he can get in the specifics.
Okay, I will be very brief because I know that there's probably a lot of great questions, and I don't want to take any time from my colleagues who made time of this as well. Um, I have with me the list of all of the bills that we are currently considering in the Ohio House. There's about 33 of them. Some have been introduced as bill numbers. Some are just ideas that we are still working with different interested parties in Columbus to address. Let me just give you a step back a little bit and give you where we are currently in the process of this General Assembly. So for those of you who don't know, we have 2-year General Assemblies. We started in January of this year, and it will run through the end of December of next year. What doesn't get done by December of next year dies and has to restart in the next General Assembly. This year is important. The first 6 months, we take about 6 months to work on the state's operating budget. As Representative Gross talked about, we spend 51% towards Medicaid, almost towards Medicaid. The joke is we medicate, incarcerate, and educate in our state's budget. That's the 3 things that take up about 90% of our state's operating budget. So right now, as we currently sit today, we will go to Columbus tomorrow. We will have a caucus, and we will unveil the House's version of the 2-year operating budget. Why is that important to any of you in this room? It's important because we are fighting for a lot of changes in property tax to go into that state's operating budget, and even try to throw some of the homestead stuff that has money attached to it into the state's operating budget. There's a growing push of representatives to do that. It's a lot harder, as some people in this room that work in Columbus would tell you, to get these things passed outside of the state's operating budget. Because it would require more GRF and going back to the state's piggy bank, which we do not want to do. We want to establish this into our budgets and work through that way. Our budget, just for reference, is around $100 billion, roughly, a 2-year operating budget. So tomorrow we will go back up. We will unveil our version of what we want that budget to look like. That budget will then get passed out. Our date is April the 9th. That we are scheduled to pass our budget out of the House to go to the Senate. Now it's not done yet. When that happens, it goes to the Senate. The Senate changes it to whatever they want. And Senator Lang apologizes. He could not be here tonight. He is working on a 2004 bill that he wanted to share with you. I think he shared it with other. Yes. He sent an article that I'll be happy to share with the group. The Senate gets their month and a half, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to work on their version of the budget. And then after that, it'll come back to the House. Most likely, we will vote not to concur. That is just a typical thing. Sometimes we do vote to concur if we agree with a lot of things Senate is doing, but most likely we will not concur. We will set up a conference committee and then work out the differences between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. So that's the process that we're getting ready to go through for these next 2 or 3 months. One of the biggest things about property tax, and I see we have some school leaders in here from Lakota and from Monroe. One of the biggest things of property tax is school funding. The biggest issues we're talking about in Columbus and working on is obviously school funding, the budget, and energy. We just passed out a huge energy reform bill last week, House Bill 15, that cut a bunch of subsidies to the OVEC and to some of the energy retailers in the state. But that's been one of our meetings, and then school funding and the budget's been the crux of what we want to do. So right now we're in phase 2 of fair school funding. It's a formula-based system. The easy thing to do, I've told people, we can just enact phase 3 and go on with our merry way. Well, there's a lot of different levers, just like property tax, that deal with school funding. We have great schools here in Butler County. Monroe is in our district. They have been capped for a number of years. That has kind of set them back. They're getting ready to build a $62 million new high school because if you go to their school and you walk through their school, they don't have enough room for the students that they have in their district. They are simply out of room, which is a good problem because that means a lot of kids are going there to get educated in Butler County. A lot of people are moving to Butler County. We're the seventh largest, almost 6th largest county in the state of Ohio. Those are all good things. Those are good things that are going for our county. At the same time, the property tax has been given to us to work on in the state legislature because the state legislature has the ability to change or alter or make corrections to law on property tax. Now, your state constitution is the one that mandates the reevaluation and the triennial update every 3 and 6 years. So there is some state constitution things that are worked into property tax as well. We are not sitting in Columbus saying, "Oh, we should go to Butler County because their values are high this year, and we should update their values because we're going to get more money." Fun fact: the state doesn't get any more money from your guys' property tax increases. All your property tax monies stay within your county limits. We do not get any more money from your property tax increases here in Butler County. So the proposals that I've been working on, again, fixing the system that has got us in the situation with House Bill 28 to eliminate replacement levies, fixing homestead and trying to increase our homestead exemption here in the state of Ohio, which has not been increased since 2007, arguably, with a 4% inflationary increase. And then we're working on a bill partially with, because of our state or our county auditor's office, with flipping the script on what information the state takes versus what information the county gives when you go for a reassessment on your property. So if I don't know you, sir, if I sold my property to you and you gave me a discount, and the county auditor knows you gave me a discount because we're family friends, or you sold it to your son, there's going to be a discrepancy with her number versus the state's number. The state's looking at it from their office in Columbus saying, your house shouldn't be valued at $300,000. It should be valued at $400,000. Wonder why it's sold for $300,000. Well, the county auditor knows that, and we all have in 88 counties. Cuyahoga does it a little differently, but we do have county elected auditors in most counties in the state of Ohio. We believe that their data, because they hire, correct me if I'm wrong, appraisers to go out to these properties and to see what they should be valued at. The state looks at it a little differently. So we found issues between the state and the counties because the state just has what they have on their computers. They don't actually go out and be in the communities like our local county elected auditors are. So we have a bill that flips that script that says we start with the county numbers and not the state numbers. The state, there's still a process. There's still a whole process that if you want to challenge that, you can still challenge that. We're not taking anything away from the taxpayer. Taxpayers have every right to challenge their property tax increases. They have every right to follow the process on their valuations. We are simply saying that we should be able to trust our county auditors more than state bureaucrats who, quite frankly, I'm looking around the room, doesn't give a crap about any of you in this room. They don't give a crap about me. They don't give a crap about our colleagues. They don't give a crap about anybody because they think they know best in Columbus. And that is the problem. And that's why we're trying to fix the system. I've went through it. I've been in the meetings where I felt so defeated leaving some of these meetings. And all we were trying to do was be a voice for every single one of you in this room. Because just like you, my property taxes have skyrocketed as well. I live in Madison Township. For those of you that don't know, Madison Township is famous because we have one stoplight and we hate development. So when we hate development, we have one stoplight, which is fine. We chose that. But when we do that, that means we're going to pay more property taxes for the services and for the schools because there's not a lot of development to offset that increase. When you look at Liberty Township, I also represent Liberty Township. Liberty Township's increase was only been maybe 6-7% on yours. Why was Liberty Township 6-7%? Well, two things. The 20 mil floor with Lakota schools, and they had so much growth that it spread out even more to all the different new housing and all the new people living in Liberty Township and all the new businesses coming to Liberty Township. So I've talked enough. I'd like to have maybe Rodney Creech come up and talk about farms and CAUV or whatever you want to talk about. But I wanted to leave time to answer a lot of questions because I think a lot of the questions will spur some more of the information.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Thomas, for showing up because that was a lot of good information. Rodney Creech, I am probably the only Preble County in the house tonight. I represent all of Preble County, Western Montgomery, and Northern Butler County, and it is an honor to serve the 40th District. And thank you to our colleagues for being here tonight. Thank you for being here. Like Thomas said, there's a lot more topics that are fun to talk about than property taxes, but I can assure you, I'm not going to go on for long here because I think you've heard it all, but it is a top priority. The one thing that I want to deliver that hasn't really been touched on is how well Columbus is operating. 2 years ago, we had a speaker race that was a disaster, and it flipped Columbus upside down. And I can tell you that for all of us in this room, and if Diane was in the house, she would have been affected. It flipped our worlds upside down. And I did not have a lot of confidence in our leadership. I did not have a lot of confidence in the process. And when we were meeting here, a year and a half ago, I think it was, we really thought we could get something done. And we met roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. We now have a new General Assembly with new leadership, both in the House and the Senate. We are a well-oiled machine. Pappas and some of the others. I mean, I can tell you that the lobbyists and the people that have been around Columbus for a long time say that Columbus is operating better now than it has over the last 12 years. That to me is good. Now here's the other thing I will tell you. If government's not getting a lot done, that's usually a good thing. All right. So let's just go there. I'm not the biggest government guy you're ever going to find. I can promise you that. I'm a limited government guy. But when you have government that's getting along and working on a common cause, that's a great thing. And that's where we're at on property taxes. I can assure you that the Senate President, Rob McCauley, and our new Speaker are working in unison along with the caucus. There's nobody that I'm aware of in Columbus that's not for reducing our property taxes. We just got to figure out what's the best way. And I can tell you that, I'm now in my 5th year as a state rep, and I will totally admit this, okay? I'm starting my 5th year, and I'm just starting now to figure out what my job truly is. And you all be like, well, then you're the wrong person for the job. Come up with me. Come up there with me. I've never dealt with property tax. I was a past township trustee, county commissioner. I'm a farmer by trade, own a business. I've never dealt with education. I've never dealt with health care. I've never dealt with property taxes. And so what you realize is when you get into these things, you think we're all out here, and I'd be right there with you going, just reduce property taxes. It's that simple, right? No, it's not. Because for every time you make a change, just like the old science class, for every action, there's a reaction. And you think you're fixing something, and maybe you are for some, but you're making it worse for others. And it's just one thing. And every time you move a piece, other pieces move too. And so we do have a new member. We have an amazing, we call them freshman class. So we have 4 2-year terms. So we have an amazing freshman class. I can tell you so far, I haven't found one that I don't like, and that's good. All of them are amazing, but the one that has been most impressive, and I think I'll probably see some heads shake, is David Thomas. He's old Ashtabula. I shouldn't say old. He's a young kid. But he was at Ashtabula County Auditor for several years, and he's sharp as a tack. And so when we have people like, Thomas Hall and David Thomas and all these people that have really dug into it, I'm not a property tax expert. I'll tell you right now. When David Thomas got up and spoke in caucus a month ago, I walked up to him and I said, hey, I want to schedule a meeting with you because I've heard a lot of people talk about property taxes and it's never made sense. But I understood exactly what you said. And so I scheduled a meeting with him. And so, a lot of times you might be sitting down with somebody and talking, and I'm telling you, I'm just sitting there going, I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't know. And I ask questions I still don't know. Sometimes it just takes that link. And with David Thomas, when he talks, he puts videos up. And I try to share those on my Facebook page. When he puts these videos up, it's like property tax 101. And I'm like, oh, that's what they said 3 years ago when I didn't understand it. I'm being serious. And so, bear with us. I think, a lot of us have never dealt with but we are in the fight and we're looking forward to, shouldering up with you just like everyone. I mean, I farm, we own ground, we own a lot of ground, we own properties. We're all getting hit hard and we don't like it any better than you do. We just got to figure out what the right fix is. So I don't know where we're at, but thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you all for being here. And Thomas, did you have something from George Lang? Any type of statement? Or just talking about his bill? Okay. So we have a microphone over here at the podium. So I invite you to get in line to ask questions. of your lawmakers or the auditor's office. I have a full staff here. And I didn't introduce Alex Bream. He's one of our new appraisers back there too. Hey, Alex. So does anyone have questions for the auditor's office or our lawmakers? Yes. I'm sorry?
Okay, are transfer not necessary documents considered do you look at them as a regular appraisal, or is that a different? Do you transfer not necessary? That's usually family transfers. You don't do okay because he alluded to that a while ago.
Okay. He said no. Okay. Any questions? Well, Matt or Carl, do you want to say anything? Okay. Okay. Is that Michael? Word is it's ready? Okay. Yeah, just line up against the wall and yeah.
You'll
Hi,
shoot
Steve.
us. I have a question. Actually, two questions. The first one is you've got 33 bills being reviewed right now between the Senate and the House. You've got 13 that are listed up here, and then it says property tax relief. Is the number one what is the goal of the legislature right now to do? Okay, is it just property tax relief? You've got this looks like 33 bills, looks like a crime scene with little ribbons connecting all these different pieces, and that's the legislative process. What is the bottom line that you want to accomplish this year?
I think it's a very fair question. I think there's two things to look at. And that's why I mentioned the state's budget. So there's property tax relief, but what does that mean to the individual property taxpayer? Well, number one, to me, it means fixing the system that got us into the mess. Number one. Number two, it means actually giving relief back to property taxpayers through our state's operating budget. Now, what that looks like, we still don't have an idea yet because we haven't had our unveiling of the budget till tomorrow. So that's, in short, that is what is being talked about. Now, there's one more thing briefly I wanted to say. There's also a conversation in Columbus about all these are all policy things, except my House Bill 156 and my House Bill 103. So 103 is the homestead one. It increases the limits of homestead, and then 156 it actually presents that cap for people that are under or over a certain age who make under a certain amount of money. Capping your property.
You're talking a foreign language. Okay, this is what I'm saying. What is your goal? Okay, if you were working for a corporation and you came in with all this, you'd have about 5 minutes, and they thank you very much for coming in.
I wish property taxes was 5 minutes because it's never going to be 5 minutes. And all of our conversations, you get 66 lawmakers in Columbus together. You have 3-hour conversations about these issues because, as Representative Creech says, there's a reaction and there's an action and a reaction to everything we're doing with property tax.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to make you be able to stay in your home, cut your property tax, and make it livable. And then when the young ones come up that are in their late 20s, 30s, to have houses that they can actually buy. That's our ultimate goal.
Okay, very good. The second question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Real quick before you get that, the one thing I want to say, is, taxes are out of control, but keep in mind that when we cut taxes, people have to tighten their belts too. So when there's going to be a lot of complaints. The people usually, and I'm just going to be, I don't know any of you in this room, so I'm not talking about you. Okay, let's just get that straight. But all these people, the last 6 weeks, have been lined out our office wanting more money, more money, more money, more money, and more money put it in the budget. Okay, so I'm the ag chair. I'm a farmer. I'm an ag chair. So I had people coming up to me saying, hey, I want you to put these ag amendments in. I want you to put these ag amendments, just stacking them up. And I'm telling them no. And they get pissed off at me because I'm not sticking money in the budget. We all have to tighten our belts, period. And nobody wants to talk about that. But if you want to reduce your revenue, you got to reduce your expenses. I'm all for it. We're going to cut property taxes, but the local governments and others, which I used to be, I'm a big local government guy, we're going to have to figure it out. And a lot of your services that you love so much, you want your property taxes to go down, remember your services are going to go down too because we're not going to be able to pay for them if we take in less taxes. I just want to say that.
And we're also looking at, a flat income tax. Senator Lang has that, and I believe we also have one of those in the House as well. So if for those that that have an income that's being taxed, those people also will get more money in their pocket, and they'll shift that around to either a higher sales tax or paying for their property tax.
And the second one is related. This year, I understand that the state created a separate pocket of money, actually the second year of it, for private non-government schools to pay into them. And they've got $1 billion for this year, which is separate from the school budget.
We don't have a separate budget for that. It would all be in the regular budget under school spending.
Okay, so does local property tax pay for that then out of the school budget?
We have state spending. Remember that we have the local property tax stays local. All of the local property tax stays with the local school. The state has money they then match with the local schools, but that state money goes with the child, whatever school. If they go to public school, it goes with them. If they go to private school, it goes with them. Wherever they go, except for homeschoolers, they don't want any of it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I recently attended a meeting at Talawanda School District and listened to the issues they have from a budget standpoint.
Talawanda.
And for those of you, Talawanda is probably one of the largest, if not largest, geographic school districts in the state. It's pretty much from Hamilton County up to Preble County, the whole northwest side. The point I would ask you all to think about is I understand the need to reduce property taxes, yet at the same time, look at what the school districts need. And think about it, I'm sure Talawanda is not the only district having to struggle with this, but the fact that geographically how it's spread out, the variable costs associated with their budget as compared to other school districts. How do we address or assess that and determine what is a fair and equitable way of handling those school district needs, and given that the funding, a lot of that funding comes out of property taxes. How do we look to assess it so that Talawanda is not put in an adversarial situation because they're having to cover such a large geographic area? Point to consider. The other thing that the gentleman just before me just mentioned, and I was glad he did, is this whole voucher program. Now, granted, the property taxes don't pay for the voucher program, but that money has got to be coming from somewhere. You mentioned what amazing idea was, what if that voucher money, or at least half of it, was given back to the schools, and therefore would that relieve a lot of the pressure to increase property taxes to cover school expenses?
I think it would be rough to get into a school expense conversation tonight, but we did in the last two budgets, we have increased public school funding $3 billion, or
Yet
school
if you
funding
look at the amount of
$3 billion.
And
So
Talawanda will share the numbers.
yeah,
If you look at what the state gives a
yeah,
school
and
based
that's
on
what
voucher number
that's what the
versus
fair
school
school funding plan was supposed to be, but again, it's not necessarily
just
fair to the suburbs. But when you're in rural like Ross, I don't know if anybody's here in Ross. Ross had to, oh, I know my township trustees here. Ross has an income tax for their schools. They're one of the very few that has to have a separate, Talawanda does too. And that's partially because there are fewer people there to pay the school bill. So that's what they decided to do local, but we do believe in local control. We talked a little bit about if the state took all the money and just divided and gave everybody equal. I promise you, everybody wouldn't be happy with that either.
That's not what I'm proposing.
I know, but we're not going to please all the people all the time with every system. Every change we make, and I think all of my colleagues, Creech, Mullins, and Hall will agree, if we do the wrong thing, you're not going to be happy. We're going to get in there and go, look what we did, high five. And you're going to go, you suck, you did the wrong thing. Because a lot of times we think that we're doing, we think we're doing a good thing, but it's like a Rubik's Cube. You move one, you have all your colors right. You got red on the red and blue on the blue and yellow on the yellow. You move one and the whole cube's messed up. Well, laws like that. And also, like Representative Hall was talking about, you've got 99 of us. and we're all tugging and pulling for our own districts. And I may say, Lakota, I have Lakota and Fairfield and Ross, and I support all of them and I get what I want, but that messes up everybody else. And then they go, oh no, you're not getting that because that's not fair to these guys. And I got Cleveland and Cuyahoga, and they're like, so we're pulling and tugging and trying to do the best we can for the majority. And again, I wasn't around when the fair school funding was like created, but it's what we have right now.
I just want to say to you, because you mentioned Talawanda, that's my district. And I've been there once, and we're building a relationship, and I go back Friday, and I'll be there for hours with the treasurer going through different needs that they have. And there's other reps that do the same thing. So I just want you to know that.
Good.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Another question. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, there's so much to unpack with a lot of these parts of conversation, because you got the sales tax, you got property tax, you got income tax, and there's a lot of bills because those are the things that prop us up. And if you think about the last 20 years, slowly the state has taken more and more money away from municipalities and communities and townships. So a lot of that weight that used to come from the state, which is our state tax dollars, has been taken away from localities, which has put more pressure on property taxes, on local, all kinds of things. So I heard someone over here say, hey, after 65, and I think there was a mention of after 65 not to pay any property taxes. I'm like anyone else in here. I'd rather not pay anything. I want to keep everything to myself. However, in my mind, one of the things is if I turn 65 and I plan to live for 20 more years and I'm in a rural area, and property tax is what pays for all the services, everything in that community, what happens to me after I'm 65 if I don't have a property tax, but all the services and the localities in there. So I just want you to think about that in one way. And also, all of us have been kids in somebody's lawn. Hey, someone yelling us to get out of a lawn. And then we become the people on the porch saying, get off our lawn. So when I think about all the things, especially what makes up communities, is how are we siphoning it away or how are we investing? And everything's a cost. No matter what we do, everything we do is a cost. But it's like, where are we investing? And I think with growing districts like Monroe, Lakota, one of the largest districts in the state of Ohio, as well as the investments and the buildings and the growth that will happen that isn't always taken up in budgets, I think it's something important to look at in chess moves rather than transactions, because all of these things are important. I personally feel like the homestead should be more around 65 to 70, because there's plenty of, as inflation grows, we want to take home more and the cost of everything goes up. So my main question is knowing that there's a lot of moving parts with the state legislature, what is the will on the most important things? Because you've got the state, you've got the income tax, you've got the property tax that's being evaluated there, and there's the sales tax. Because if we get rid of all those things, all we have is the sales tax. And the state of Ohio, in comparison to the rest of the U.S., has only grown 2.3% versus 7.4% for the rest of the U.S. So how is that growth? And part people will argue on businesses to a certain extent, but we're not seeing a lot of that growth. And it's not necessarily any problem on any end. It's just knowing the math and also knowing infrastructure over the next number of years that we want to maintain, because none of us want to pay for potholes. None of us want to pay for a new firehouse, new police cars, any of that stuff. But those are the things we need to do. So my biggest thing is the will of the state legislature. What are the key things tied to property tax in order to make sure that, hey, we're not just cutting, but where are we investing to make sure we have infrastructure, we have places for our kids to grow and learn, and that we're not taking money out and transferring that into a number of other places. Because rural and local populated communities all get hit in some way, which if we're going to take away, people got to realize what we're losing and what we have to pay for. So that's the big question, is what's the will of the state legislature after, everything that I said, but will of the state legislature around property tax, where the key things are that is not going to impact local communities.
I think there was a question in there somewhere, so we'll start back. Ben, I know you and you know me. We have a bill on Wednesday, House Bill 103, that deals with homestead, and you better be a proponent that supports a letter writes a letter to the committee saying you support that bill because our bill talks about changing the income threshold in the homestead exemption for seniors to increase it, not to the levels you were talking about with 65 or 70, but to increase it to start somewhere. The bill we talked about with we called it the 70 under 70 last year. This year it's probably like a 65-50 kind of split. But to your point about numbers, the the way that we have looked at property tax for seniors needs to be different than people that can make a variable income. So me and another representative from Cincinnati, Democrat, Donnie Isaacson, have introduced legislation again that basically says when you reach 65 years of age, you still pay property tax, but you get capped at the amount that you pay on your 65th birthday. You're capped. And if you make under, I think it's $50,000 a year or $55,000 a year, you cap it. So you still pay your fair share. To your point, you still pay your fair share, but at the same time, they're capped for the rest of your life because we want you to stay in your communities. We want you to invest in the communities that you have lived in your whole life and spent your whole life raising your kids and your grandkids. Now, to your point about spending and making it a priority, boy, do we have an opportunity for you because I agree with you. Public safety is obviously my favorite thing. Public safety is something that I always stick up for. But to your point, I think one of the things that I believe all submitted, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm willing to bet we all submitted, we fund libraries more in the state of Ohio than any other state besides New York. Am I right, Auditor Nolan? So our point was, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Governor Kasich cut the local government fund in half. So our argument is we're going to take our library fund, that's at 1.7, and there's amendments been submitted to take it down to 1.25 and to drastically cut library funding. It's not a secret. It's what we've been talking about for a number of months now. And what we're going to do with the difference, we're going to give that difference to local government and back to local government. Now, I have a caveat that I'm trying to work on. I'm fine with giving local governments more money, but as Representative Priest talked about, they have a spending problem just like everybody else does. My point with giving local governments more money is I would like to have a caveat to they have to take off one of their levies that they currently have on the ballot. Now, that could be impossible for the auditor's office to figure out which one and to do all the numbers. But I want to start. If we're the state and we're going to say we're going to give you more money to operate on or do whatever you want, then you should have to take off one of your operating levies that your property taxpayers are paying for to put more money back in the property taxpayers' pockets. So I hope that answered your question.
I'd allow it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and one other thing, sorry, sir. I think another thing that's part of the property is energy costs.
Yeah.
I would love, just as a comment,
Yeah.
I would love to do some work. I would love for you guys to do some work with HB6.
We just did it last subsidies. As soon as well, it takes a process. So we passed it, and we supported it. Yes, the Senate passed their version of energy repeal. It's Senate Bill 2, and as soon as the governor signs it, yeah, the subsidies are gone. The House Bill 6 OVEC repeals are gone. Yes, and that was just so you guys all know. House Bill 6 was before any of us was in Columbus, but that dealt with the first energy scandal that the state went through in 2020.
All right, next question.
So, my question: we're talking about the state and the state's property tax. We're here in Butler County, specifically in Hamilton, and we recently had a battle with Miami Conservancy District. Okay, that literally is another tax that we're getting hit with on our property. So my question is this how is the state meshing this all together? Because where we went up 37%? Okay, now if you add that Miami Conservancy District tax, they can call it whatever they want, but that's what it comes down to because it's based on our property value. You add that in, our numbers are going way higher than anybody else's. So how is the state, how is our legislature, particularly our representatives for Butler County, dealing with that?
Do our legislature, we also have David Stark in the back who has been running that campaign with the Miami Conservancy. But do one of our lawmakers want to address that, or would you want Michael Ryan, Vice Mayor, well, former Vice Mayor, Councilman Michael Ryan?
Uh, Thank you, sir. So I know Representative Mullins, that we are working on a couple things here in Hamilton. We are working with the Conservancy. Oh, I see Susan back there. You can come on up here if you want to. Okay. Uh, so, yeah, so we are working on something with them. We got a committee, and I see David Stark is back there too. I believe he's on the committee. So we are working on a path forward to make sure this process doesn't happen again. So the committee's still meeting. It's going to be a couple more months. David, is there anything else you'd like to add as you are on this committee specifically? Okay. So we're still going, and we're going to continue to go. And once this process is taken care of, we have some other ideas, but I want to keep those ideas to myself for now. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Yeah, so technically the legislature doesn't have any skin in the game, believe it or not. But we do have some influence. And what we have been trying to do is work with, we are the representatives of our districts. We got a letter that was signed last year, I think, by about 18 or 19 of us sharing our concerns. And I will tell you that even though we don't have a seat at the table, I did have a seat at the dinner table about a month ago, and I did pay for my own meal. By the way, anytime I sit down with people, I pay for my own food, because if they pay for my meal, they think I owe them something. And if I pay for their meal, they probably think they owe me something. So I do buy my own food when I eat out. I just wanted to mention that. But we did have a very good dinner with MCD, and we are very involved. But at the end of the day, we really don't have any skin in the game. Like you would think. These board members are appointed by judges, and we just have to trust them. I think we're building good relationships with them, and I think relationships go a long way. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot we can do. I mean, they're a very powerful board, and but the main thing is we build those relationships and trust. We do what's right. It is what it is, and I think the plan that they're coming up with will be pretty appeasing to all. I think. Well, I can't say, like Jennifer said, everybody ain't gonna like it, but it'll be appeasing to most.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. You had a question?
Thank you. I came from Iowa 20 years ago, and I know a little about the Iowa system. And I'm looking at all the bills that have been introduced here. We did something in Iowa that's very simple. We put a limit on valuation increases, and that we tied residential and ag together, so that neither class could go up any faster than the other one could. If you're happy with the classifications today and the relationship to each other, you could handle with a valuation increase, and that can eliminate a lot of problems.
Matt Nolan, do you want to address that?
Sure, I love the Iowa method. My family's all from Iowa.
Wait.
I love the Iowa method. The Iowa method's great. The Indiana method's great. But to Representative Gross' point, then, you have to give up local control. Ohio is in this situation that we love our local control. We don't want Columbus telling us how to run Talawanda schools. So if you don't want Columbus involved, you can't do what you just proposed. You can't put it based on value, because then you're getting rid of the local control proponent of it. So we're at a tipping point in Ohio. If we're going to keep local control, then we've got to pass HB, they all run together, 186, and limit the floor. That's the thing. If we want to get rid of local control, I'd support that. I don't think local control works. But I don't think many people in this room agree with me. So you got to make that choice. Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, they all have great methods. They send all their money to Columbus, Madison, Des Moines, and they decide who's going to get it back. I'm for that. But that means some of your money is going to Toledo. Some of your money is going to Akron. Some of your money is going to Dayton. Right now, all of your money stays right here. And so that's the trade-off.
Thank you, Auditor Nolan.
So SB 42 goes in the opposite direction. SB 42 with Senators Reynolds and Craig's authorizes limited home rule. Townships, counties, and municipalities to establish temporary zones for certain homeowners who can apply for a partial property tax exemption equal to the percentage of the increase in the assessed valuation of their home. So it actually increases local control to our townships and our municipalities. It requires a receipt of exemption. It authorizes exemptions for an infinite period for homeowners age 60 and over, and for 6 years for other homeowners. So that actually gives more local control, and they manage because the money is managed locally, right? So it's different. If you don't like these bills, the part of the reason these are up there is you ought to write all these down, look for them if you liked anything we said, and at least look up that bill and support it if you like it. Don't support it and write us if you don't like it.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
And she may have answered part of it, but who establishes the assessed value percentage, the 35% that you put on? Because
Yeah,
I mentioned to you,
right. The
my
county
son
auditor
just I'll
looks at
just
all
say
the
this: my son
properties.
lives in Colorado, Longmont, Colorado, and the prices are crazy out there. He's got a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in Longmont, and it's appraised at almost $500,000. But his property taxes that he pays are $2,670, and he complains about it. And and you see all these high prices, these places where all the valuations are going up. If you do the math, his assessed value is $26,000, which is 6% of whatever the appraised value. So that gentleman over there, the question I've always had is, who sets that assessed value? Does each local do it, or does the state do it?
So the auditor's office is responsible for reviewing all the sales. We develop what's called a sales ratio. Right now, if you look at the county sales ratio, our sales ratio is hovering right about 80%. So the sale ratio is a simple mathematical calculation. If our value is $80,000 and it sells for $100,000, that sales ratio is 80%. It's a simple mathematical calculation. The state of Ohio, the good thing with the state of Ohio, we have a new executive director, Kelly Tennant, I believe, is in charge, and they're accepting sale ratios for revaluation purposes at the 90%. So we have to move our property values from that 80% sales ratio in the current market to 90%.
Yeah,
So it's
I don't
part.
understand what you're saying, to be honest with you. I that's not. Okay, the state
Oh,
laws. That's my question.
the
I'm
35.
saying is
Oh,
I'm not arguing.
yeah,
I don't argue with
the
the assessed
valuation
value. You're right. I
process.
used to argue taxes all the time 10
Sure.
years ago on
Yeah.
some rental properties
So the
we had.
35% assessment ratio is
Okay,
established by
that's
the state of
the
Ohio.
state's
Yes,
established. Well,
absolutely.
what if that became a local factor? I mean, if you look at it, if you want local control, the thing, I don't have any problem. What you're doing is you're being taxed on unrealized gains. Is the way I look at it. Somebody was, another party wanted to do that on your investments, which is insane because it goes up and down and you don't know what it is. But I'm just saying, I'm just thinking, why don't you even think about how that assessed value is local community?
It's,
Like Oxford, they want to keep it at 35%.
it's all spelled out in Ohio Revised Code.
Well, I know, but does anybody looking at that? Anyway, that's my question, because I look at it like you're being, it just, it just doesn't make sense because you're being taxed on something you're not going to realize a gain on until late. And you're right, people over
But
65, 70 are
the
getting
folks in the
forced out of their
market,
homes.
if you're in the market, you're benefiting from the increase in property.
Only if you sell your house.
Not true. If you do a cash out refinance, if you do a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, there are people who are benefiting from these high sale prices, causing their values to increase. So there is an inherent benefit of increased values. Now the developers and the builders, they're making money in this market by selling homes to consumers. Apartment landlords, they're making money because rent's going up. So there is an inherent benefit in values increasing.
Well,
it's very loosely defined, and I just think that people are sitting there, and particularly the elderly, which you're talking to homestead, but I don't even think it's near enough what you're saying because you force these people, they're
Well,
sitting in houses that they paid for 50,000. Their income never went up, and then all of a sudden,
the, the
I
state
just think it's something to
the
look at
state
a
of
different way.
Texas raised their homestead requirement or their credit from 15,000 to I believe 100,000, 140,000.
Right.
So there might be some relief in homestead.
Yeah. Anyway, that was
That
my question.
that 35% assessment ratio is a longstanding statutory standard in Ohio, codified through the Ohio Constitution and implemented via the ORC in Article 7, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution. So we aren't even able to change that much. But we have that Representative Lear has a 3%. It would be nice if we could vote as citizens too to not increase our property taxes more than 3%. Auditor Nix showed that table with the money and the coins. The lowest rate there was 9%. So if we could vote on it and not increase it more than 3%, that would force your local government and everybody else to spend within their means.
Beth Lear. Oh, yeah.
Hi, I have two questions. First of all, are these bills going to be inflation adjusted in the levels when they say $65,000, for example, or $26,000 income? Will those be inflation adjusted over a period of time?
Well, what's your other question? And then I'll take it.
My other question was a little more specific. You mentioned that George Lang has proposed a bill to implement a flat income tax. And could you speak more to that? What percentage? What is income? Is it earned or unearned?
You do the first, and Jennifer will do this.
Yeah, I'll speak to the first was a very valid point. As it currently reads in the bill text, there's not an inflationary part to it. We're just starting there. So when I introduce bills, everybody introduces bills differently. I try to do a lot of work before I introduce something to try and weed out all the people that would be for it or against it and try to make the changes. It's something we can definitely take a look at, but we're still very early in the process. I thought your question was going to go somewhere else. I thought you were going to say, of all these bills introduced, is anything going to get done? I was trying to formulate an answer for that, and I sincerely, I would love to get every single one of these passed tomorrow, if I was speaker for a day, or if I could have the powers that be for a day. I think in the beginning we were the only ones that were fighting and feeling that way, and I think now there is a growing push from everybody in our caucus. Whether you're and I should have said this in the beginning, whether you're Republican or Democrat, property taxes don't care. So in Columbus, we may disagree on what the answer is to property taxes, but that's not to say that we're all Republican representatives from Butler County. Democrats are still hearing from this in their counties as well. So Democrats have been at the table as well, looking at different solutions to property tax that they believe. We now are evaluating what could actually get done in the budget as far as with policy or attack it outside of the budget. And to your second question, I'm not even going to attempt to answer, so I'll Representative Gross.
So we have two flat tax bills, HB 30 and Senate Bill 3. Senate Bill 3 is the one that's Senator Lang and Senator Huffman. And I believe it's your earned income. And then I also believe that this one, the Senate bill is small, very small, easy to read. So I would just go and read that. But it's a flat tax, state income tax, flat rate of 2.75 over 2 years. So it's probably a gradual, what I want to say, phase in, something like that. But I think the Senate bill looks a little bit more simple because I've read the House bill and it's like 13 pages and does certain things in certain income brackets and stuff. But so HB 30, SB 3, flat income tax.
Okay, well, we've had an hour and 25 minutes, so we'll do 5 more minutes if there's any other question. Anyone else? Oh, Russ. Okay.
Representative Hall, I have a question for you. I'm a township trustee in Ross, and HB 28 is going to affect township government. I'm sure you realize that.
Absolutely.
Um, in order to make that to make a levy change, the existing renewable levy must be would it have to be left to expire, and then hopefully voters approve a new levy if the current levy is not continual?
So I would have to double check on the language. I believe that we grandfathered the existing replacement levies
Mm-hmm.
under the bill. Maybe double check on that real quick. Get you an answer quicker than.
So, under current law, subdivision may propose a replacement levy to extend the term of an existing levy if a replacement levy is imposed at the same original millage rate of the levy it is replacing. By contrast, they can also propose renewal levies. Hold on.
So basically, beginning with elections held after October 1st of this year,
Right.
You wouldn't be able to use replacement levies anymore. Now, thank you for your service as a township trustee. I was a former township trustee in Madison. Township trustees don't like this. Guess who else doesn't like this? The Fire Chiefs Association. Guess who's a fire guy? They don't like me right now because of that. But it's a fine line of this is good policy. And let me tell you why it's good policy. Really, really brief.
Please.
When voters go to vote for things, they should know what they're voting on, period. We should make it simpler for them to understand what they're voting on, period. With replacement levies, and I've heard this argument for 2.5 years now, replacement levies are deceitful by nature. Replacement levies, renewal levies, we're still allowing subdivisions to do a renewal levy. You're still allowed to do a new levy, and you're still allowed to do a renewal with an increase. It's just replacement levies are a little bit more confusing, and that's why so many political subdivisions use them, because they feel like, no new taxes. Well, it is going to increase your taxes. So, sorry, did you have some?
Nope, you go ahead.
So, and I've heard it. I'm a huge township guy. I've carried the Township Association bill the last two General Assemblies, the reform bill. I'm a huge fire guy. That's what I do when I'm not here. But there's a fine line with doing right and doing wrong. And in my opinion, House Bill 28 is a step doing right by making sure voters know when they go vote that this is going to increase my taxes, or hey, this is going to change my tax rate. This is going to change what I'm going to be supporting or not supporting.
But that penalizes townships who are being forthright and transparent instead of admonishing the ones who aren't.
Yeah, and I would agree to disagree, because I know that you have a tough job being a township trustee. It's not an easy job, but local government is the best government. But I think it allows you to be more transparent with your voters. Number one, when they go to vote for these things, of what they're voting for and how it's going to affect their property taxes. We've ran in, and then to your point, we've ran into this issue. Why do we have this bill? Well, we've actually ran into this issue across the state of Ohio, where people go for replacement levies, and what do they say on their election signs? No new taxes. It's happened.
But that's my point. That's disingenuous for a township to do that. But we as a township aren't going to do that. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I understand it's already cleared the house, so
I know you guys wouldn't do it, because it would be the front page of Denise Callahan's next Journal News report, talking about how Ross is lying to their voters.
It'd be all over Ross Talk.
Ross Talk and all those talks. Yes.
I think educating the public is more so the answer.
Absolutely.
So that they understand the difference between a replacement and a renewal. But you're saying that's not what this bill does.
No, this bill gets rid of the ability to do replacement levies. I've been very clear. If we want property tax reform, one of the things is we got to reform the system, and getting rid of replacement levies is a step to reform the system.
I just look at that as linguistic semantics. I don't. You and I are on the same page politically by far. So is everybody here.
Yeah.
But I respectfully disagree.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. My company officer respectfully disagrees on things all the time with me. We still love each other.
What kind of a dinner talk does that make at home with you and Pop?
Yeah.
Is that?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
I know that your dad's a fire chief.
Yeah.
How does he feel about it? Is he here tonight?
Oh, he's not here tonight. He's not political. He's not political at all. My dad, I love him to death, but he would never. He'd come here to support me, but he would never come. The Township Association made it clear that they were against it. The library, or excuse me, not the libraries. The Metro Parks made it clear that they were very against it. Fire chiefs came in obviously against it, and there are associations that are based in Columbus. They take votes. That doesn't mean that every single Metro Park agrees with it or disagrees with it. One thing interesting about Metro Parks, though, they were the only ones that came in when we passed the bill last General Assembly out of the committee. And one of the things they said is, well, 80 to 85% of our budget deals with levies. And I'm like, well, maybe that's not maybe that's not the best way to fund your operation, is relying on replacement levy after replacement levy after replacement levy. So we just fundamentally disagree. Again, my dad's very non-political when it comes to these things.
Why does I know why the OTA isn't for it? I've spoken with them. Why is the Fire Chiefs Association not?
So the only, and this is good information just for everybody. So the only argument we've heard, I wasn't on the committee this time around. I serve on finance, energy, government oversight, and public safety. So I don't serve on Ways and Means this committee or this time around. The only thing that kept getting brought up is they just wanted this additional tool in the toolbox, that we were taking away a tool from them that they used historically to fund new revenue for the political subdivision. And that this was basically just taking a tool that they had in their toolbox.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. Thank you.
Last question? Perfect.
Hopefully it'll be a quick one. So I think I heard every state rep up here say that they all agreed that the Fair State funding program wasn't fair, and that's a huge component of our property taxes. So I was just curious, you said tomorrow the House's version of the budget is coming out. I just wanted to know if you could kind of talk us through at a high level what's different for school funding from you guys versus the governor.
So if you're seeing article, that's a very good question. Number one, thank you for that. I'll just give my 2 cents and pass it on. If you're seeing the governor or the complaints about the budget, that's House Bill 96. For those of you writing notes, House Bill 96 is the governor's introduced version right now. Tomorrow we get to announce our version. To be very honest with you, and I'd be happy to share what I can with you, we don't know yet. We will have a caucus in the morning. We've all submitted amendments. We've all submitted things that we want to see that look like, but we have to have those internal conversations with our caucus to see what's actually going to get done. At the end of the day, you got to get 50 votes. You got to get 50 votes to pass things. You got to get 50 votes to pass the budget. We are unsure really what that's going to look like. We will know tomorrow. Now, I will say this. We all have rep inboxes. We all have phone numbers. I have a cell phone number I'm happy to give out to anybody. Follow up with us. If you see something in it that's not tax related, let us know that you don't like or that you do like. But as of tomorrow, we'll find out kind of what got in and what didn't. It's been a 2-week process of, I think they submitted or they drafted like 3,000 amendments, 3,100 amendments from 99 House members. And then they had to go through and pick what's going to go in and what's not going to go in. So, again, what you see in our version is not the final product. I want you to remember that. It's going to go to the Senate. The Senate's going to have their product. And then it's going to go through a conference committee, and we're going to work out the differences. Anyone else? Okay. Sorry about that. That was a long-winded answer. I apologize.
Okay, I just want to thank our lawmakers for working so hard, because I know you do. And I want to thank our elected officials who all came out, and also all of our taxpayers who had questions and are interested in the topic. And I think you know that our lawmakers are very responsive, and I hope our auditor's office, you'll find us very responsive as well. So thank you. It's been over an hour and a half, and I want them to come back if we ever do this again. Okay, thanks.